promos, shows where you can find us, and so much more. So stick around.
مشغلي YouTube.
Hello, See Things Differently listeners, and welcome to episode 17, where it is May everywhere, and that brings with it all kinds of great things. I am here with David Woodbridge. How's it going, David?
Absolutely wonderful. Can't complain.
Excellent. And I'm also here with Matthew Paquette, who is our product manager of all kinds of products like Victor Stream and Stellar Trek and Ray-Ban Metas and Odyssey. And Matthew, hopefully I got everything. And how are you doing?
إخفاء عناصر التحكم في المشغل.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited about this week's episode.
I am too. We all are collectively thrilled because all of you, longtime listeners, if you're not a longtime listener, well, this episode will make you be a longtime listeners. It is our pleasure to welcome back to the studio a man who needs no introduction, Peter Tusik.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, wherever you may be. Wait, I thought I wasn't doing this anymore. I thought Rachel.
Just when you
David?
thought you were out, we brought you back in.
I am back. As a guest.
An important distinction, but yes, we're having Peter on as a guest this month to talk about some of the wonderful work that he does at his organization. Hey, Peter, we're super happy to have you back.
So I was sitting, at my desk, and I work, unlike when I was with Humanware and I was on the road constantly, I'm now at a desk and in the building every day, and I'm sitting there and I'm always kind of bouncing things back and forth between teachers and lots of what we can get into, all the things I'm doing, but coordinating. And I get an email about coming onto the podcast, and I thought, what the heck? Of course I'm going to come on the podcast. That's awesome. I get to be in the other chair, right? So why not?
Yeah.
And it was a really, really neat thing that we were able to get off the ground, and now it keeps on going and growing, and here I am. So thank you tons for having me on. And it's just going to be fun to talk with you guys because, especially, for you, David, I haven't talked to you since I left. And Matthew, we've talked a little bit, but just it's nice to talk with you all again. Rachel, I've seen you a couple times. You're old news, right? I've seen you around here.
Good on, Rachel.
You're not far.
That's right.
No, it's really nice to be here.
We're so excited that you're here. And Matthew, since you were able to make the connection and snag Peter for this episode, do you want to introduce our topic, which I think is going to be really, really fascinating and an engaging one? So go ahead, let's kick it off.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this month, we're going to be talking about accessibility in the workplace. So how blind and visually impaired people can have resources to have gainful employment and be able to work and I'm going to specify it now because that will be the topic of our hot debate segment a little bit later, but not only work in the accessibility field, but in any fields that they'd like to work in. So, obviously we know that there might be some limitations, right? So obviously someone who's blind is not going to be a neurosurgeon. There are some limitations there, but then that being said, there are also a ton of jobs that someone who's blind or visually impaired can do. And there are some wonderful organizations everywhere in the world, but for today we're going to focus in the US because that's where Peter is. An organization like Peter's who helps visually impaired people find good jobs through technology, but also other means. So, Peter, where are you at now that you've left almost a year ago at Humanware?
It will be a year. Last May, I remember recording that final little outro. So I am working at the Chicago Lighthouse. And for those of you who are familiar with the lighthouse bucket, if you will, there are lots of lighthouses across the United States. There are dozens and dozens of them. And if you've been to one lighthouse, you have been to one lighthouse. They are not affiliated with each other. While there may be some crossover here and there and some joint operations here and there or programs that may transcend, they're all separate. Now, the Chicago Lighthouse is currently, experiencing its 120th anniversary. So we have been around 120 years. And in that time, we have, started and maintained and continued to evolve many different programs. We have dozens of programs here, ranging from early intervention to employment, from seniors to students, from low vision research to low vision clinic and everything in between. What I'm specifically running is a center called the Illinois Instructional Materials Center, and that is a center that provides alternative format books, so Braille or large print textbooks, as well as technology, be it blindness or low vision. Certainly humanware is a big part of that. Or classroom aids that are adapted or designed for the blind to all students across the state of Illinois who receive vision services and have an individualized education plan. So we serve about 4,200 students, and we provide them with what they need in the classrooms to access their curriculum. So it can really range. One order could be for Braille paper, and the next order could be for a Monarch. And we will do everything in between. One order could be for a set of 2020 pens, and the next order could be a request could be for something like a Prodigy for Windows. So it really runs. We do thousands of orders per year. We operate a state and federal budget in the center, so we have two different sources of funding that we're able to use to provide the technology. But the Lighthouse as a whole, just like our program has multiple funding sources and is quite widespread, the Lighthouse as a whole, where I sit, where my office is where I am right now, is a very, very wide-ranging agency that covers everyone. What I like to say is birth to earth, and that is really what this building is able to do.
What kind of tech do you use in your job? Do you ever need to ask for any accommodations for maybe folks out there looking for employment, and how did that all go for you?
We, again, as kind of the purveyors, if you will, of the technology, we're not doing as much analysis on our students in terms of helping remediate what their needs are. The teachers are kind of doing that and requesting products from us. But with that being said, because of where I spent the last many years and because of kind of the relationships I built, I receive lots of inquiries from our teachers asking for my advice or kind of experience with technology. I continue to use a Braille display throughout the day. I am also what is referred to as the ex officio trustee for the state of Illinois. That means that I am in charge of the quota dollars, the American Printing House quota dollars that purchase American Printing House equipment, so something like the Monarch. And so I do use the Monarch because I'm the EOT and I happen to be blind and certainly played a part in its development, so I still have a big part. And I, so I do use lots of Braille. But, I do a lot of encouraging of technology usage, working with our teachers to make sure that they're creating and building the most prepared pool of students that they can. And it's not just blind students, right? Getting their low vision students to utilize technology is just as important to me. Even though I can't relate to it because I'm totally blind, it's just as important as it is for our blind students who it's deeply personal for me to sit in this chair because I was a student who received products from the Illinois Instructional Materials Center and also, grew up here in Illinois. So, as far as what I'm using personally, though, I use Braille. I have a screen reader. The agency provides licenses for those things. But if something is needed, I have, reached out and have requested accommodations where I've needed them. It is certainly a little bit easier to do when you work for a place that is intimately familiar with blindness than it might be for somebody who's, say, working at Xerox. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done. And it doesn't mean that there aren't resources and services, not only here in the state of Illinois, but all over the country and all over the world that can assist with workplace accommodations. And I think, there is, and there always has been kind of an avenue to get accommodation. It's not always the smoothest process, but it certainly is something that's there. And I've had to use it sparingly here, but for instance, I needed a way to read some of our forms that we're in the process of a major system build out. And currently, the way we do things is very archaic. It's very much a teacher fills out a form, sends it in, requesting various products. sometimes they just send a scan. Like they take a picture of a piece of paper. And you would think they wouldn't do this. These are teachers of the visually impaired, right? But,
sure.
But again, they're trying to get things done quickly, and they will send in a picture that I can't read. And so I need a quick way to read them, right? I need an Odyssey to read that piece of paper, that filled out form. And so I, had to put in request for OCR device because I needed to be able to read these. So again, even here, I mean, I'm encountering not only my need for technology, but inaccessible workflows that I need to conquer.
Yep.
And so we're always kind of up against that, and just knowing how to request that through HR, going through the process, documenting the need, and then helping the people who are making the decision understand that there is not just one product, but the one product you need. Because oftentimes when you try to get an accommodation, they will take the kind of the path of least resistance, the
Right.
cheapest or the quickest, but as the user, it comes down to what are you most familiar with and what is preferred by you, and explaining why that product that may be twice the cost of what they're thinking or may incorporate 3 or 4 different parts. Why do you need that? And helping them understand is extremely important as well. So I've had to do a lot of justification.
Yeah, for sure. And I find that it never comes from a place of bad faith when things like that occur. You mentioned like the scanning of the file. And just as a fun little anecdote, we at HumanWare, the people who work, like myself, we work in an office that's near Montreal, and they recently sent out some forms to fill to get a security card, a security badge. And we're part of the S. Lord Exotica family, so the request was coming from our mother company, S. Lord Exotica. And the form, when it came in, the first thing that I noticed, and I contacted immediately one of my blind colleagues, Simon, and I asked him, I said, can you fill that form out? Like, is it accessible? Because it really looked like it wasn't. And he did confirm that it wasn't accessible. And once again, I'm not putting the blame on anyone. It is the person who sent it out is not working with blind people every day. She's part of a company where they do normal glasses, like glasses for regular people. So she's not used to having to have accessible forms and everything. And when we asked, they were very kind and said, "Oh, we're really sorry about that. Very apologetic. We'll redo the form. We'll make sure it's accessible, and we're going to get that form soon again." But yeah, it never is in bad faith.
No, it isn't. And that doesn't mean that you won't have struggles, and sometimes it can lead to some very heated, and kind of informative discussions that you'll have to have
Yes.
between the two
Yeah.
parties, and sometimes that requires something even further, which could be legal action or could be but generally speaking, and I've always had, and I've talked about it when we used to talk, a year ago, Rachel and David, about advocacy and how we encounter
Yes.
different situations, and how often I think we all agreed and talked about this, the benefit of respectful advocacy, the benefit of
100%.
giving the benefit of the doubt and just explaining and working with folks to try and get everyone on the same page as kind of that first step, of getting things done. And like you said, you explain, someone says, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." And the next thing they're able to provide you with what it is you need, and you all feel good and can kind of move on. So.
Yeah, and then if you're stuck with people who don't want to understand, or that's where, as you mentioned, the advocacy becomes like taking further action, whether it be legal or written complaint or whatever it may be. But yeah, giving people benefit of the doubt, I think, is a healthy first step. But yeah, after that, if you're not getting what you need, then absolutely take further actions.
I think that comes back to just problem-solving skills in general. And I like that you mentioned that even though, you work at a place that's familiar with blindness and perhaps other disabilities, and David and myself and Matthew do as well, but that still doesn't mean that things are going to be absolutely perfect.
No.
It also comes down to the fact too, and this goes for all my jobs that I've had, is if one particular thing doesn't work, so you can have all the accessible equipment you like under the world, but sometimes a computer's a computer, and if your web browser doesn't work, or the particular word processor doesn't work, or your email program doesn't work, it's always good to have alternatives in your toolkit, because if you just think that just one thing's going to work all the time, then you're just going to be very disappointed. So, sometimes I'll use Chrome, or because I'm on a Mac, I'll use Safari. If I'm on Windows, I'll use Microsoft Edge, Chrome again, Firefox, all that sort of stuff. So because I always say to people, look, it's like anybody. Like if your monitor goes down, you plug in another monitor. If your screen reader goes down, you know, at the very worst, run narrator, which is actually, I probably shouldn't go. It's actually pretty good these days. But, you know, NVDA, JAWS, Supernova, I mean, we've got all these alternatives now. So that's, I always like to say to people, particularly in the workplace, the last thing I want to hear was, oh, I couldn't get that done because my screen reader wouldn't work or my browser wouldn't work. It's like, well, you need to have some skills to say that, okay, fine, I didn't quite, like the fact that I had to do X, Y, and Z. But if you still get the job done, nobody really cares what sort of screen reading technology or anything else that you use anyway.
Absolutely.
I would also say that, even working where I did for all those years at Humanware, I would encounter, when I started here, I had some things to learn and some things to really sharpen my skill set on. I was not, and still am not, the greatest track changes user, but I've used them a lot more in the last 10 months than I've ever used them in any previous role I've had. Track changes, comments, revisions, that sort of thing in Microsoft Word is doable. Is it fun and easy? No. No. But it's certainly, I'm not going to sit here and say, I can't do that.
Right.
Or I don't do that. I may say, I don't prefer to do that, or I don't really want to do that, but it's certain, I'm going to be using track changes and revisions, and I've had to get some articles and some different things done that way. And now I'm more confident in doing it. Same with the use of Excel. I'm handling a lot of budgets now. Doing a lot of specific line budgets, transposing budgets across different types of reporting sheets. And, it's something that, while I was a kind of a decent Excel user, I didn't have necessarily that breadth of skill set that I have now. So even just being open to learning and kind of exploring, and it's not easy. I was like kind of spinning around a little bit for the first month or two, saying, gosh, I really have got to pick this up, as I think we all do with any new job. But in time you kind of develop those skills.
So Peter, you mentioned you still work with the Monarch, you have a Braille reader and everything. So that brings me to what's probably the most important question of this whole interview is, are you still carrying that 500-pound backpack every day?
No. My rock collection has been retired.
Okay.
I no longer. Now I do not do much travel. When I did travel, this is really funny. I was in Louisville for the annual meeting as the ex officio trustee. We're required to go to Louisville once a year. And I went to Louisville, which was my first trip in about 5 months since I'd actually gone to Europe for the Tactile Reading Conference, and which was my last trip with Humanware. So I go and I saw Andrew Flatcher's there, of course, and I hand him my bag and I said, look at this. And normally I would do this as a joke and say, can you grab my bag? And they would just be like, what are you carrying? He took my bag and he was like, wow, did you forget everything? You don't have anything with you. I said, yeah, all I need is a computer now. I don't need all that stuff. I have a Braille display and a computer. But yeah, the days of the Peter's walking mobile, Best Buy are over.
It was insane.
No more of that. I'm a one computer kind of person now.
That's awesome. It's probably better for your back as well.
Probably, but I don't feel as cool when I can't save the day. If someone needs like a USB micro to USB-C cord on a plane, I can't just whip one out anymore like I used to be able to and save the day.
Good point. Peter, you're working mainly with the education, but you're also seeing a lot of things in employment. What's the one thing that you think would help across America, across the United States to help people have an even easier time integrate the workforce if they're blind or visually impaired?
I can look at it from two perspectives. One is truly from the perspective of, right, we're going to make the most prepared, employable adults we can, as we can do that by educating and keeping our students as informed as possible. And that's what I take very personally, and really, we are here to provide adapted and accessible materials, having access to books, all of that. So I believe that, when you look at the school systems today and just what is expected of our blind and vision impaired kids, being able to develop those great typing skills, being able to develop good written communication skills, having good Braille skills if you're a Braille reader, or embracing Braille, if you're kind of a dual media reader. But also when it comes to those who are newer to blindness, I think a lot of times, there are folks who lose vision or are losing vision later in life or as adults anywhere along that journey, who they're unsure, and they need to find and work with folks who can help them be sure, not just of one way of doing things, but they need to to be able to be shown that there are multiple ways of developing skill sets. And a lot of times, I think what kind of can hinder the process is when you have someone who's newer to blindness or newer to vision loss, goes into a setting and they're shown one way of doing something and expected to do that task that way. And it can be really tough because not everyone can A, learn the same way, and B, even be taught the same way. So, I do think, and I don't know this is an answer, but I love it when I meet a rehab counselor or I meet someone who is, a social worker or someone who's working with these populations who are newer to vision loss, and they're not looking at it, at this vision loss through the lens that they may have. They're listening to that client and they're helping that client understand that there is multiple ways of doing things. And I see a lot more of that than I used to. And that doesn't mean that there aren't general techniques and places that teach great skills. So if you think about there are training centers specifically designed and developed for these populations that do teach you great methods for cooking or great methods for daily living skills, and that's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. I think though that once you leave those environments and you step out into the world and you're sometimes just kind of thinking that I learned one way and I'm not good at that one way, so I'm just going to kind of sit here, or I want to do a different way, and you encounter someone who says, yes, but that's not the right way because that's not the way I knew how to do it. So I think just trying to develop these individualized plans, listening to the clients, and working with them to meet them where they are is extremely important. And I see that here in our employment services space. I don't work in employment services. I work, strictly in this side of the K-12 education, but I do have a lot of crossover, and certainly have just kind of experienced this time and time again as I've traveled. And we continue, no matter how many years, months, we've all been in this field. We hear about the unemployment rate. We hear about the unemployment struggles. We hear about the underemployment struggles. It's real. It happens. It's endless. And it's still very stubbornly right where it has been. And so we just have to continue to try and think of different ways, think of more open-minded ways to get to the next level. And this is where AI is going to change a lot of this. People's abilities are going to shift quickly in what they're able to do, even closer to their vision loss, where they used to may have to spend days, weeks, really months, years developing these skills. They may be able to acquire them quicker, I believe, thanks to AI.
Peter, this was a fantastic discussion. I know you're sticking around with us for the next segment, which will be a fun one to talk about, a little bit more about employment in the field in general. But thank you so much for just coming and sharing your perspective on things that you've seen in the field now that you've taken a bit of a step back from the tech side of things and humanware directly and are looking more into like education and tech. I'd say you have a broad overview of things that you hear from teachers and students, and I think it's fantastic.
Oh no, thanks a ton. Really, I love coming on, and it's very different. And we could talk about this in the next segment. It's different for me. It's a different set of daily expectations and kind of just different workflows. But I still am very fortunate because I get to keep my toes kind of in the tech side as well as the EOT, and so I am still kind of tied into that education technology piece that we were in, but I definitely have a lot of other responsibilities. So I'm glad to be able to have some time to come on.
All right, so for the debate hot topic of the month, I have a fairly fun one, and I think you'll all agree with me that, as blind and low vision individuals that you can only work for accessibility related companies, right?
You really just winged that one. You just lofted out there. Oh yeah, here's the expectation. Speaking of not looking through an open lens.
Yeah, there you go. Obviously, I'm being facetious here, but yes, that's our discussion. It's not something I honestly believe, obviously, But there are a lot of people who are not in this field that do believe that, oh, of course, Rachel, you're blind, so you work at Humanware. Of course, Peter, you're blind, so you work at Chicago Lighthouse. You couldn't work at Verizon, for example, which is completely false, obviously. So yeah, I wanted to get your opinions on that.
This is a great one because I never thought in a million years I would work in blindness.
Me
I
neither.
have a history degree, and I had when I was in college, I wanted to be a translator. I wanted to be an interpreter. I wanted to work at the UN. And it's not that I couldn't have done that. I could have done that. What I realized is that I loved to teach. And so I did come into this space in a very, it was circuitous. But I've very fortunate to meet so many people who, are working just kind of in these entirely not blindness related fields who are blind. But I've also realized that for many of us, it can be a pretty seamless stepping stone into full careers. So it is actually, even though I never intended to work in it, in the blindness technology field, and even though technically you could say now I no longer work in the blindness technology field, I think, it was and has been one of the best things that I ever could have imagined because it allowed me to develop so many different skills. But there are so many people out there who are doing so many different things, and we meet them, right? Think of how many times we've met those, gone to those, especially those interest groups at the National Federation of the Blind or at the American Council of the Blind, where you meet with the teachers, the lawyers, the social workers, the folks who are just working in call centers or working in all these different jobs, supervisory level, entrepreneurs. There are many blind entrepreneurs who do not work in technology, certainly are doing all sorts of other things. So it's neat, but definitely that gets projected that yes, we should be doing this because we're blind. I mean, Rachel, I don't know. I remember when I helped pull you from your previous job.
That's right.
You were, I don't think you envisioned yourself working specifically in blindness technology.
No, I'm kind of the same as you. I have a counseling psychology degree. And then I was like, I think computers are more fun. So I wanted to do, maybe be a systems admin or network administrator or something. And then it just kind of fell into teaching. And now I'm running around, with tech and meeting a bunch of great people. And so it's very interesting how some of us can end up in this space. And it's not because we're blind. I think that's just, a happy accident, or that is just something that's an asset in this field, but doesn't necessarily, it's not the main qualifier. And I think that's an important expectation to set. David, what about you? How did you end up in this space? And then I have a really cool question for Matthew.
Well, it's actually quite weird because my degree is actually as a social worker. So when I went to school and when I went to uni, I wanted to do social work and counselling and all that sort of stuff. So I spent 4 years doing social work. But then along my little journey, apparently I had a knack for technology, and because I kept ringing up the Royal Blind Society and kept asking them all these horrible and nasty questions about tech, because I needed to actually adjust things to do my job as a social worker, I think eventually I actually got asked, would you like to apply for one of the I think back then it was called a technology resource officer's job or something weird like that. And so I was actually asked to do it because I had a knack for tech. So ever since then, I've been really lucky to go from job to job just doing technology work. So, I wanted to do originally social work, and now I've ended up being a technology person. That's not to say as a social work background, I still drag out my skills and, the good old, empathic listening and active listening and self-disclosure where appropriate and blah, 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 blah. So I can still roll out all my social work stuff if I need to, but my main focus is technology. So it's actually been really good. But the reason why I thought I said to Rachel a month or so ago, because I came across this really sort of strong technology person that used to work at my previous job. And it was very weird because his statement went something like, oh, look, I've been at Vision Australia for a while, but I want to go to a mainstream job because I don't want to get tagged as being only able to work for a blindness organisation or low vision organisation, I thought, you know what, that's even never entered my head as a professional working in this space. And that's why I thought today it would have been just, as we record today, it would have been nice just to bring it up, because I just thought I'm getting old now, 40 years of employment, that has never entered my brain that, one should work for mainstream, one should work for quote blindness, whatever organisations. I do my job because I'm lucky enough to enjoy my job. It's got nothing to do with if I'm blind or low vision. Yes, it does help that I'm blind because I use all the braille cool tech stuff that we tend to, sell and support at Humanware. But, I certainly didn't enter the job, and I'm sure as, it's Matthew. I mean, much like I can turn around to Matthew and go, why the hell, sighted person, would you want to work at a blindness/low vision related organisation? Couldn't you have done better? And I think that's a really sad reflection, because it's, a job to job, a company is a company. It shouldn't really make any difference. And, I think it's more of an individual thing. If you feel you don't feel good about it, it's got nothing to do with the companies themselves.
So Matthew, I'm so glad you're here for lots of reasons, but one of them is, as you are sighted, how did you get into this industry? And I ask most people this if I get to travel with them or something, and it's I'm so curious. And you've been in the field for quite a few years now. What led you to this field?
Yeah, so long story short, we go back to 2020. I had a job that my contract ended in April of 2020. So perfect timing. Nothing happened around that time of the year in 2020. COVID hit. I was out of a job. I was on unemployment. And then a friend of mine worked at Humanware back in the day, who was a product manager at Humanware for low vision products, Eric Chassé. And he reached out to me in, October or early November and said, well, we have an opening at at Humanware for a tech support job for low vision products. So, my first question was, what's Humanware? So I went online, looked it up, found that it's a Quebec-based company, which is where I live. So that was very interesting. Caught my eye, and then I saw that they worked in blindness space and everything. And, my knowledge of the accessibility and blindness world, were pretty limited to Daredevil. So I had no real idea of what it entailed or anything. I honestly, I'm not even sure if at that point I was 40 years old, if I even met a blind person in my life. But needed a paycheck, figured, we'll try it. We'll see what it is. And, came on board and absolutely fell in love with the mission of the company, at Humanware, but be it Humanware or any other company, because nowadays, we can talk about Vispero, we can talk about Glide that we had last month on the podcast. We can talk about a bunch of assistive technology company, Agiga, a lot of those companies. I really love the mission. I'm happy that I'm not making, I work for a company that is helping make people's lives better. So I absolutely fell in love with the mission. It completely changed my view on, in tech support, most of the technical support team is blind, and I thought, wow, I wonder how they can work. That was my first thought. I was thinking about how can they use a computer, how can they enter cases in our ticketing system, how can they use Word, how can they use Excel. They're blind. They can't do that. And then, over time I learned that I was very, very wrong. I was very impressed at first that they were, I'm like, wow, they must be geniuses. And only to find out that while they are very smart, it's a skill that is learnable and everything. And yes, I absolutely, through my time that I was a tech support, but also now as a product manager, I am talking, Peter, I think it was Peter who mentioned that NFB, we meet people who are lawyers or like teachers and that are not in this field. They decided, if you go into this field, great, you're giving back and it's a phenomenal thing to do. But if you decide you want to be a lawyer, if you decide you want to be a teacher for something else, if you decide you want to have your own company, if you decide you want to be a system administrator, as Rachel mentioned before, that's all doable, absolutely. And that's thanks to technology a lot, but it's also thanks to people like Peter who work in the education field and help bring people Peter was mentioning, the cornerstone is education, and that's true for sighted people as well. But I think it's even more true for blind and low vision individual to learn the proper tools, the proper techniques, the literacy, and all of those skills. So yeah, that's how I came to be on. And honestly, I absolutely adore what I do. I'm super proud of the work that we do as a company, and to be in this field is a blessing. I can wake up every morning knowing that I make a little bit of a difference in people's lives.
One of the things that I'll say is that those of us who are in this field who are blind and have been here for a while, we have seen a lot of blind people not make it in this space because just because you're blind doesn't mean you're going to succeed in this field. And I will meet so many, and this is very common, parents of blind kids who will become blind adults, or maybe they're getting close to being blind adults, who will just flat out ask me, how do I get my Johnny to be just like you, Peter? And I'll say, well, first of all, don't do that to Johnny. Like, don't do that. No, for many reasons. But they're always equating this like that is the only successful way, right? We want our kid to be just like Rachel, just like David, just like Peter, and that's not really going to be the answer, right? And yes, it's great to have role models, or it's great to have people, we all have them, who were blind or are blind, who we've learned from, whether they're our friends, whether they're a mentor, whether they've shown us or help us along through certain journeys or points in our lives. We want, and everyone should want, to kind of develop their own skills and ways and do whatever it is that's going to make them happy. Because we've all seen, and we can all think of many names of folks who've tried to be a product specialist, or tried to be, that tech support agent, or have tried to run a workshop, or tried to do these different things that we do and we've succeeded at. But it's not as easy for everyone. It doesn't come naturally to read a room, or to present, or to teach. Not everyone's a born teacher, or a born listener, for that matter. So it's, it is, I think that's a big part of it as well.
I agree. And I can remember the person that, I went through one of those, I don't know if they did it in the States, but it was called something like an organizational occupational therapist / psychologist, whatever they might have been. And I can remember going in and having my assessment done, and they said, well, really, the computer field or the technology field is not for you, because you obviously don't have the aptitude for it, and we recommend you try and get a job in an office or whatever else it might be. So now I wish I had a time machine and say, you know what, I've just built my whole career for the last 40 years around technology, and you said I wasn't good at it. Can we just agree that you were wrong?
That you're not good at your job.
Right.
No.
And don't limit me. You got to have good expectations.
Correct. That's right. That's always in the back of my mind, that every day it pops up, but it's like, it's quite funny because, because the problem is when you're good at technology in general, it's not just for the blindness organisation, you become the head person in your household. Anything goes wrong with anything.
Yes.
Family tech support. Yep.
Oh,
You
yes.
fix it. Yeah, you're a technology person. You fix it. Like, why isn't the satellite stuff working today, or why isn't the power wall for the solar battery working? It's like, you know what? I really don't have anything to do with those things. But no, you're a technology person. You're supposed to know everything, apparently. So, yeah, it's quite funny.
Yeah, as you say that, I'm remoted into my brother-in-law's computer trying to save his SD card. So, yes.
Well, this was a really enlightening discussion. I got to learn more about my co-hosts and my colleagues, about how you guys came to the field. And I think what matters is maybe not how we came here so much, but the fact is that we're here. We love it. As Matthew said, it's a blessing. And I would agree that we are able to just have the good fortune to help others. And no matter whether we are blind, whether we're sighted, whether we fall somewhere in between that spectrum, we're doing, I think, what we were made to do for this time. So thank you, as always, to Peter for coming on. You're always full of all kinds of great insight and knowledge. And Matthew and David, thank you guys for just making this episode a really great one.
Thanks so much, Rachel. It was awesome to be here. Hopefully I'll come back. Maybe I'll come back every May.
I love it. Every May.
May is when you'll hear from me. We'll see what I'm up to next year. I can impart you with some wisdom.
Just as a bit of inside baseball information for the listeners, every month, David, Rachel, and I meet together to plan who's going to be the guest for the next month. And it's always a decision we take, all three of us together, we decide. And then this month, back in April, I made the executive decision that I wanted to have Peter on, and I asked Peter before I talked to David and Rachel, but I was 99.99% certain that they would agree with my choice. So there we go.
Oh, I love being here.
It was like coming home to see your dad again. It was lovely.
Exactly. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
No problem.
Papa Peter.
Peter.
Love it.
All right, everybody, it's time for the tips and tricks segment. This segment, I will be demonstrating features that we released in the latest Victor Reader Stream software update. That's version 1.6. So you will hear features like the reorganized bookshelf list. You can put your bookshelf items into a list that you can move forward or backward through. The download manager, so you can check on downloads and prioritize them if you'd like, and so much more. So stay tuned. The first feature I want to demonstrate is the refactoring of the bookshelf. So for a long time, VictorStream has had the bookshelves in the rotation that you needed to press key 1 in order to access each bookshelf. Now we've introduced a new setting where you can set it to list mode, which means you will be able to navigate the bookshelves simply by pressing key 1 and then press keys 4 or 6 to navigate through the various items. I'm going to go into the menus now and show you where you can set that up. So I'm going to start by pressing key 7.
Menu, no local settings. General settings.
This is where we want to be in general settings, so I'm going to press confirm or the pound key.
Language.
I'm going to press key 4 to get to this new setting.
Bookshelf navigation mode, rotation.
Now it's set on rotation, which is the default behavior. If I press confirm,
Bookshelf navigation mode, list.
now it's set to list. So I'm going to press key 1 to exit the menu.
Leaving menu, references. NLS barred.
So you hear that it went to NLS barred, which is the next item in my bookshelf list. If I press key 6 again,
Podcast.
here's podcast,
NFB newsline.
NFB Newsline, and so on. I can also press key 4 if I'd like to go backwards.
Podcast. NLS barred. References. TuneIn radio.
Now, any of these bookshelves that I want to enter and see what's in here, I can simply press confirm.
TuneIn radio. Search TuneIn stations.
And this brought me to TuneIn Radio, where I can search the stations. So this style of navigation makes it very easy to quickly find the bookshelf that you want, and then simply press keys 4 or 6 to navigate the items in that bookshelf once you press confirm to choose it. The next option that I'd like to show you is the ability to hide various applications. If you find that you don't use the references option, for instance, or NLS barred, or any of these services that you can add to your stream and you'd like to hide them from the menus, you can now do that for a cleaner experience. So I'm going to press key 7 and we will hop back into the menus.
Menu. Reauthorize.
This gives me an option because I'm in a various bookshelf. I'm going to press key 7 again.
General settings.
Here's general settings, which is where we want to go. So I'm going to press confirm.
Language.
And I'm going to press key 4 to get to the hide applications option.
Bookshelf navigation mode, list. App toggle menu.
This is called app toggle menu. And I'm going to press confirm to go in here.
Podcast, on.
So it said podcast is on. If I'd like to hide that, I can simply press confirm to do so. I'm going to press key 6 to go to the next service.
Internet radio, on.
Now let's say that I wanted to hide the internet radio from my applications list. I'm going to press confirm.
Turning off this service will delete all associated content. Press to confirm or any other key to cancel.
So it asks if I'd like to delete this service, and if I do, it will remove any associated content. So I'm going to press confirm to continue.
Internet radio, off.
And now it's off. So when I go through my menus, which I'm going to do, I'm going to press key 1 to get back to the bookshelves.
Search TuneIn stations.
So I'm back on my TuneIn Radio bookshelf, and if I circle around, you'll see that Internet Radio is no longer present.
NLS Bard. Podcast. NFB Newsline. Bookshare. Daisy Online. TuneIn Radio. References. NLS Bard. Podcast.
So, and you can do this with any number of bookshelves. If you have other services like NLS Bard or Bookshare, you will want to remove those credentials first, and then you can hide those bookshelves as well. The next refactor that I'm very excited to show you is our new download manager. A lot of what we spend time doing on the stream is downloading content from various sources and enjoying that content. So we wanted a way to make this experience a bit more efficient and streamlined. So to get to this download manager, I'm going to press and hold 3. And just a quick note, you'll want to be on your online bookshelves area to do this.
Download Manager 12.
Tech stuff. The future is battery powered. The story.
Podcasts. Queued for download.
So I'm on the 12th option here, and let's say that I want to move this up in the list. So if I press option 3,
Cancel download.
so I have the option to cancel the download. I'm going to press key 3 again.
Download next.
I can download next. So if I want to move this up in the order, all I do is press confirm.
1.
Tech stuff. The future is battery powered. The story.
Podcasts. Queued for download.
And now, instead of being option 12 in the list, it has moved to option 1. So I can prioritize episodes or article content into the order that I would like to have them downloaded. I'm going to press key 3 again, and we'll go through some more items in the download manager.
Cancel download.
I can cancel the current download.
Download next.
Pressing key 3, I can get to download next.
Cancel all downloads.
I can cancel all of the downloads.
Cancel download.
And we're back to cancel downloads. So this is navigated by a simple press of key 3 once you are in this download manager. And this gives you the ability to reorganize your downloads and make it so you have the content that you'd like to listen to more immediately at your fingertips. So I'm going to now press the cancel key or the star key to exit the manager.
NLS Bard.
And now I am back on my bookshelf list. We've also made some adjustments to podcasts in terms of changing how many episodes you can get per feed and how often the stream will check for an updated podcast. So I'm going to show you how to check those options. I'm going to navigate to my podcast bookshelf.
References. NLS Bard. Podcast.
I'm going to press confirm since I have it in the new list mode to enter this bookshelf.
Podcast 19. Podcast feeds. 1.
Applevis Podcast.
2. New episodes.
Now here is the Applevis podcast, and it's telling me that there are 2 new episodes, which I can download. I'm going to press key 7 to go into the podcast on a local menu.
Menu. Humanware podcast suggestion. English. Downloaded podcast episodes to keep. 3.
So I've pressed key 6 to get to this option. So right now it's telling me that I can keep 3 episodes. But let's say that I really enjoy this podcast and I want to make sure that there are additional episodes. So I'm going to press confirm to go in this submenu here.
3.
Here is 3 if I press key 6.
4. 5. 6.
So I could tell the stream that I would like to keep 6 episodes of the Applevis podcast. If I want to decrease that number, I simply press key 4.
5. 4.
And then to confirm my changes, I will press the pound key.
Selected. Downloaded podcast episodes to keep. 4.
So now I have adjusted the number of episodes that I would like to keep. Now, while I'm still in this podcast menu, I'm going to press key 6 to go to the next new option.
Podcast update interval. 30 minutes.
This is podcast update interval. It is set to 30 minutes. I'm going to press confirm.
30 minutes.
So at this point, the stream will check for new podcast episodes in this feed every 30 minutes. I'm going to press key 6.
1 hour. 2 hours. 8 hours.
So if I would like to spread out the process of the stream checking for updates and maybe not have it do it so frequently, I can navigate with keys 4 or 6 and choose the number of hours I would like. I'm going to press confirm. Let's say that I would like this to check for every 8 hours if there is a new podcast feed.
Selected. Podcast update interval, 8 hours.
And that's all there is to it. So you can simply navigate into your podcast menu when you're on the podcast bookshelf, and you can do this for each podcast feed. So if you want 4 episodes of one and maybe 6 episodes of another, this is very simply done by pressing 7 once you're on the feed of the podcast that you would like to change. And then you can update the podcast interval simply by navigating to that option within the podcast local settings menu. The last enhancement that I would like to show you that we've added to version 1.6 is the ability to quickly pull up a list of Bluetooth devices that you have previously connected to and then choose one from the list. To do that, you hold down key 9.
Bluetooth audio devices. Rachel's AirPods.
And this pulls up a list of devices. It's showing me that I have my AirPods listed. If I press key 6.
Soundcore 2.
Soundcore 2, that's a speaker.
Rachel's AirPods.
And I only have those 2 devices, and you can navigate them by pressing keys 4 or 6. To choose the device, you simply press confirm. So these are some of the new features present in version 1.6. A lot of these have been shaped by your feedback, so we thank you for contacting us and letting us know what you would like to see in a future software version. All right, everybody, it's time for the upcoming shows segment. Where can you find us in the month of May? On May 21st, we will be at Tech Blitz in Sands Point, New York. From May 23rd through May 26th, we will be at the Roundtable Alternative Print Conference in Adelaide, Australia. From May 25th through May 27th, we will be at the Vision Serve Alliance Conference at the Hyatt Regency in Columbus, Ohio. May 27th through May 29th, you can find us at Site City in Frankfurt. So if you happen to be at any of those places, come by and say hello. We'd love to talk with you. If you have comments or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Please send them to podcast@humanware.com. That's podcast@humanware.com. Thanks so much for listening to See Things Differently. We'll see you next month.
طاقة البطارية 9. مركز التحكم. تم الاختيار. نمط طيران. زر. تم الاختيار.